Um, Good afternoon and welcome. I am Dr. Sheila Caldwell, Southern Illinois University System Office Vice President for Anti-Racism, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, as well as the Chief Diversity Officer. I would like to welcome you to today's conversation of understanding on elevating employee appreciation across SIU campuses. Thank you for participating in part 5 of a 6-part series that's focused on results from the 22 Viewfinder Campus Climate Survey. Today, we will focus on the narrative finding employee appreciation. In a moment, I will share findings along with direct quotes from SIU staff and faculty members from our Campus Climate Survey. But before I get to that, I would like to introduce you to our SIU System President, Dr. Dan Mahoney, and then also our ADEI Project Coordinator, Ms. Doris Williams, and she will receive your questions in the chat during this COU. Also, I want to thank Carol Walker, who is providing technical leadership and uploading this COU to the system YouTube channel immediately afterwards. So for those of you who want to share it with friends and colleagues, please feel free to do that upon completion of today's COU. And now I'd like to take a moment to really thank our panelists who are here today, our panel of experts who have gathered to respond to these questions. First, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Carl Chambers, who is our Director of Human Resources for SIU Edwardsville. Next, we have Ms. Renee Colombo, Administrative Associate Employee Manager in the Human Resource Department at SIU Carbondale. Ms. Donda Frades, Executive Director for Office of Correctional Medicine at the SIU School of Medicine. Dr. Masunda Capitamayo, Professor and Chair of Mass Communication at SIU Edwardsville. Ms. Patricia Merritt, Assistant Director for Media and Community Relations for East St. Louis Campus. Dr. Jody Murray, Dean of College of Liberal Arts at Southern Illinois University Carbondale. And definitely last but not least, Dr. Sue Engel, Professor of Medicine, SIU School of Medicine Associate, Dean for Human and Organizational Potential Chair, Department of Medical Humanities. Thank you all for being here today, and we are so eager to learn from your insights and perspectives. Now, again, just to provide context, I'm going to share my screen because I think it's important that you hear from SIU team members. The reason why we conducted the Campus Climate Survey was we wanted to invite voices and really learn and ultimately make sure that SIU is a place that faculty, staff, students, alumni, that people feel welcome and they want to show up every day. And so with that, I want to share some of the feedback that was received from our employees about appreciation, or I would say sometimes lack thereof. And that's exactly why we're discussing that today. So we are going to share about comments, ways that we can improve, as well as current initiatives. So why did we conduct the SIU Campus Climate Survey? We wanted to assess perceptions, evaluate resources, and analyze experiences. And our perceptions were specifically about welcome, sense of belonging, political and religious views, safety, access to resources in the workplace, in the classroom, outside the classroom, and in the surrounding community. So again, we looked at more than 40 reports and we analyzed some of those experiences to make meaning of the data. And I think it's worthwhile to note that we received about 1,000 comments, and I know that many of you have read those comments. I can just affirm that Dr. Mahoney and I read every single comment. So again, I just want you to know that your voices were heard as you submitted this climate survey. When we specifically look at demographics, we had a 52 response rate from all employees across the system. We sent it out to 7,000 employees and 20,000 students, and over 52 employees responded, including faculty, staff, and administrators. 18% were students, 52% were female as far as faculty, 47% male, and 1% who identified as non-binary. As far as ethnic demographics and racial demographics, it's important to note who completed that. So we had exactly 77% white individuals, employees who completed the survey, 3% multiracial, 3% Hispanic, 7% Asian, and 10% African American. So again, that is the context as far as how we're reading the following comments. So as far as employees sharing about how they feel unappreciated and things that we can do to improve that, one of the comments, I feel the institution does not value employees and would assume as they quit or retire instead of treating them as valued members of the team. This is a direct quote. I am a cog in a university machine, a replaceable unit of work. Other comments. I feel that too many times job openings are given to people outside of the SIUE community, and oftentimes promotion is based on who you know instead of potential. It is also hard to gain certain management experience required to move up, but it's often required skill. I think that there should be flexibility for those who have been employed with SIUE for many years. Appreciation isn't really shown through longevity raises or promotion for staying here long-term, whether or not you have the qualifications or desire to move up. So again, we see this comment speaking to promotion and job openings and a desire to fill those with current personnel. The second comment, lack of faculty raises for many years while steadily increasing workloads due to training, assessment, certainly do not make faculty feel valued. We saw some of those comments, especially with COVID and turnover and people quitting. So that's something else we would like to address during this conversation. I left the university and was hired back. This is a vote of confidence that I did a good job the last time I worked here. So again, someone saying that they saw appreciation because they were allowed to come back to SIUE after they departed the organization. This is a specific comment speaking to women and people of color workload. The service imbalance in this university is atrocious. Research consistently shows the negative effects of higher expectations put on women for service and lower value of service. It's a lose-lose situation. And then they ask if we do a number, statistics of committees of male, female, percentages at the institutions or the school, college, or the department level, I bet you at every level, it is way overpopulated by women compared to men, which is not mirrored by the same statistics generally at large of men and women. It's ridiculous and draining and must be addressed. When you add in family, where women still are responsible for the majority of parental responsibilities, it is a disastrous combination for women. So again, speaking to the invisible labor that women have to carry at SIUE and SIUC, School of Medicine and beyond throughout our campuses. Employees feeling valued. So we did see those comments, but we also had employees who took the time to express that they do feel valued on our campus. I experience being valued when my perspective and ideas are listened to and not dismissed. I primarily feel valued for the work I do, working with students and service to my department. I would feel valued more if there was a reward system for successful work and less of a chasm between administrative pay and faculty pay. And again, these are all direct quotes. Other comments about employees feeling valued. A main way I have felt valued by the institution is through personal comments from my colleagues and department head when they say things like, I'm so glad we hired you because you fill in the blank, or we're so glad you're here. And this comment speaks to how one of the things that we've stressed is that it's everybody's responsibility to foster a welcome, inclusive, and safe learning and workplace environment. And this comment shows that, again, it's not just administrators, leadership, or even pay. This person feels valued when their colleagues are affirming to them and value the work that they do. Another comment, work from home is very appreciated and a personal factor in my employment retention. I hope the opportunity continue to some capacity. So again, someone showing appreciation for remote work opportunities. And I do want to also speak to some of the current initiatives. And these initiatives have been specifically conducted by the Faculty and Staff Advisory Committee, led by faculty staff as well as Dr. Gutchuk, who serves at the system office. And one of the things that the Faculty and Staff Advisory Committee did was they actually did listening sessions to say, what do faculty desire, what do staff desire that will help them grow, that will help them get promoted within SIU, and that will advance them. And so a couple of things that they heard that they were able to implement was wellness program workshops. This was conducted by directors of counseling at SIUE, SIUC, and Dr. Susan Hingo for the Center for Human and Organizational Performance, as well as the School of Medicine. So we see this collaboration among all of our campuses, SIUE, SIUC, and the School of Medicine. And this workshop was done last year, and it included breakouts for each campus as well, so they can actually customize according to their campus. This information has been recorded, and there are resources available for you if you are a faculty and staff member, specifically as it relates to wellness. One of the things that this group will also be doing is releasing a suggestion box, which is coming up, actually happened as of yesterday on March 27th, to all faculty, staff across the system to get suggestions for future programming. And the next thing is they're creating a collaboration award, because we are very intentional about incentivizing hard work and recognizing employees who do go above and beyond. So this is another thing, again, this group has done across the system, and they want to show appreciation for faculty as well as staff who have collaborated across the system to create a positive impact on teaching, scholarship, or service as it relates to anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the things that we do need to speak to is when we create awards, that sometimes obviously the intent is to really make visible invisible labor and to highlight employees who go above and beyond. But it doesn't sometimes it can have the opposite effect where people are excluded, and sometimes it can be women, people from racialized ethnic backgrounds. So it's not a perfect system. And so again, our goal is to be inclusive and not exclusive when we create these type of opportunities and incentives across the campus. Okay. A few more initiatives that's worthwhile sharing is that the staff also did their due diligence with other staff members across the system. And one of the major things that came across was leadership training. So staff was able to work with Dr. Suk Young in the School of Medicine and actually conducted a series of workshops to help staff in their roles across the system. And the first workshop will be conducted on April 25th, about a month from now, and it will specifically be focused on working smarter, time management, and self-care strategies. So again, I just want to say that there are initiatives going on to show that we are listening and we do value your voices, and that we want to make sure that you feel valued and appreciated across our campuses. The last thing I want to share that is due this Friday is the ADEI Lifetime Achievement Award. This was started by the SIU System Office under the leadership of myself, along with Dr. Mahoney. We also got buy-ins from Diversity Advisory Council members, our chancellors, Chancellor Lane, as well as Chancellor Minor. And the purpose of this award is to recognize staff and faculty members whose careers include generally 20 years or more. So if you was to ask generally, I would say about 15 years minimum to about 20 years of documented service and advocacy and anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Ms. Doris Williams will put the link in the Zoom chat, as well as the SIU System web channel that you can actually refer to. And it talks about the specific criteria. So I would encourage you to nominate your deserving colleagues, faculty, and staff members who have spent a considerable amount of their life work going above and beyond the call of duty as it relates to cultivating a more inclusive workplace, classroom, and workplace environment for all SIU members, including faculty, staff, students, as well as alumni. So please go to that link, and you have a few more days to qualify for that as well. And so now I'm going to stop my screen share and now engage our expert panel members as we invite questions. And so the very first question that we will speak to, and you will see some of the questions that were specifically customized based on comments from our employees. So the first question is for Ms. Dawn Dufresne and Ms. Patricia Merritt. What makes an employee feel appreciated in addition to more money? Ms. Dufresne, if you could take that question first.
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to participate today, Dr. Caldwell. I would like to talk about the difference between employee recognition and employee appreciation. Although they're both used interchangeably, they are two very different things. Appreciation is about who someone is. Recognition is about what someone has done, which means in the past. The key difference is appreciation is showing a gratitude for a person's value. Recognition is showing gratitude for an action. And I think knowing the difference when we have these conversations is critical when we talk about developing programming, establishing anticipated outcomes from those programs. Clearly delineating and defining the two allows for improved communication, understanding, and greater employee engagement. I think true motivation is us doing something that because we want to do it. I love my work. I want to do it. I want to come here every day. But the motivating factors to that are challenging work. It's challenging. People want to be challenged. Understanding the importance and role of your work in an organization as a whole. They want recognition, responsibility, and allow a personal growth. So while recognition is appropriate and necessary, it has to be timely and specific. Appreciation is appropriate all of the time. One of the things that we do in my office is before a new person, every new hire gets a survey that asks how you would like to receive appreciation and recognition. Not everybody wants to receive call everybody in a room, give, clapping accolades. Some people want to receive appreciation quietly in writing. And I think those are things that we have to individualize when we talk about employee appreciation programming. So some smart person one time said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's in addition to the financial incentives, these are the things that people are motivated by and feel appreciated with.
Thank you. Ms. Merritt. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, Dr. Caldwell, I'd also like to thank you for inviting me to join in the panel discussion today. I have been at SIUE for 22 years, and I've made observations along the way and have had discussions with people on how they have had wonderful experiences as employees, and at other times when people have felt less than appreciated. I'd like to also leave with this quote from Bob Nelson that says, "You get the best effort from others, not by lighting a fire beneath them, but by building a fire within." So I'd just like to briefly touch on 4 items that I have on this subject. The first is comp time, and that is a manager should know those employees who are going above and beyond, or when extra hours are being logged because of a special project and a staff shortage or et cetera. So when this occurs, giving employees occasional comp time is most appreciated. And you did touch on remote work, but I also had remote work down. We know the pandemic is over, but still there are times when remote work can be helpful and is needed for an employee. And that's just what also is noting when there has been a job well done. And so I feel you get the best from your employees by encouraging them to keep going. And sometimes that's in the face of grueling circumstances. It can be as simple as opening your mouth and just saying thank you or great job, but say something. It's good to say that to their face and in public, acknowledging a job well done. And then finally, feel you should engage employees, and this involves listening and learning and using affirming words. So we all want to be seen and heard and known, and we feel like, so that we can feel like we're part of the team. And it's not necessarily about spending hours and hours with people. We know we don't have time for that. But over the course of time, a manager, a supervisor, you should know the people who work for you. The single mother who's raising a Down syndrome child, the married couple with young children who are taking care of their elderly parents, or the recent widow. So when you ask people about their lives, besides the superficial, how are you doing? You make them feel seen and you make them feel as if they matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were excellent feedback and insights. And so I just kind of wanted to repeat that. I really appreciate Don DeFrady speaking about the difference between recognition that is timely and targeted for a specific task, and then appreciation. We can do that all the time because, again, we're valuing humans and not just the work that they do. It's like, I see you as an individual, even outside of your job description. And so I just really wanted to capitalize and highlight that, is that we can always show gratitude and appreciation. And I consider that low-hanging fruit. It doesn't cost us anything to be able to share a kind word and affirm people and show gratitude for who they are. So thank you for highlighting that. Comp time, remote work. Again, you talked about, Ms. Merritt, job well done with recognition and just engaging and knowing the people who we work with. So I think those were all excellent tips that you all provided for us. And I also feel like those are the things that we can actually do today, right? We don't even have to wait till tomorrow to start doing that those particular tasks. So thank you for that. And now for the second question, which will be targeted to Ms. Renee Colombo and Mr. Carl Chambers. If you could specifically tell us what your specific campuses are doing to show appreciation for its employees. So if you could just highlight things that are going on the Carbondale as well as Edwardsville campus for us to benefit from, we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. As a panel discussed previously, it's important to note that different individuals feel recognized or appreciated in different ways. So I'm kind of listing different ways of recognition based on non-monetary means. We have awards recognition, our annual service awards in December, recognizing employees for their years of service with the university, beginning at 5 years in each 10-year increment. The celebration of announcing them and putting an event on seems to show appreciation to the years of service they've dedicated to the institution. We also have a university level staff excellence award that nominations can be sent out through their peers or even in their supervisors. That is done annually. We also have a Saluki Pride in our SIU Today that's come out twice a week that just shows and it highlights those individuals of what their work is here and their dedication to the university. Another ways is giving discounts to employees to show their appreciation and to get them a part of campus. So our student center in the summers offer a discount on Tuesdays for 25% off, and it's called Tasty Tuesdays. There's also a lunch league bowling at the student center, and they offer a discount to staff, faculty, and students to come bowl and to get together outside of the work atmosphere. And also the recreation center offers discounts to employees for membership. So different ways that may show appreciation to employees on the campus.
Thank you. Dr. Chambers.
Thanks, Dr. Caldwell. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because we actually have an event that's coming up next week. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So what we have here is our Faculty and Staff Appreciation Day, and it's for all campuses and all locations. So I'm the Director of HR for SIU Edwardsville. We also provide services for our East St. Louis location as well as our Alton location. And so when I say provide services, when we think about appreciation, it's not just that Edwardsville says, okay, we're going to coordinate all the services, but we collaborate with the various locations to find out what's going to benefit and what it is that their employees want, what it is that their staff want, because it really starts with building those relationships with people. We're all human beings, and just really taking the time to acknowledge that and not just almost like what you don't want to do is dictate. What you want to do is collaborate. And so, as you can see on April 7th, the Edwardsville campus, we're holding our Faculty and Staff Appreciation Day. And then on Wednesday, April 19th, will be East St. Louis campus. And then Thursday, May 2nd, Alton campus. And so what we do is that we reach out to, initially we had a committee, and then it was like, okay, HR, can you really kind of take the lead on this? And so by taking the lead, what we did was we reached out to the committees that were previously formed. We said, okay, how can we assist you? We don't really want to take over. We just want to assist. And so there's a ton of things or events that are going to be happening at Edwardsville campus from 11:30 to 1:30 that you have up there. I won't go delineate verbatim every single item. I'll let you kind of peruse that. But the biggest thing is just taking the time out to let our staff, our faculty know that we value them as from a human resources perspective. But it's bigger than that. It's also by department, and by your leadership team, your specific leadership teams. One of the things that in the short time that I've been here is that I said, okay, I would like to have attend the MLK luncheon. Not just me, but members from my department, like 50% of my department. I want us to attend that luncheon because those are the things that illustrate that we support the functions on campus and also that we are a part of campus. And so it's an iterative process when it comes to appreciation and involvement. The next thing that I decided to hold for my department, because you start at home, was an all staff meeting, which was held last week for the entire department. You take a few hours out of your day to tell your staff how much you appreciate them. And with that, we provided a DISC introduction assessment where they actually have a chance to learn about their own strengths and be able to lean into those strengths. And so in addition to that, we also have the service awards coming up in May. And then we also have a holiday appreciation later in the year. And so there's a ton of things that we are doing to make sure that our employees know that and our staff know that they are valued and appreciated each and every day.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. That was helpful. I think I appreciate the detail, and I know oftentimes we think we know, but you all were able to really highlight some significant events that's going on across campuses on both of our campuses. So I would highly encourage faculty, staff, student workers, and others to just take advantage of that. So thank you for highlighting all those specific initiatives. Our next question, and this is for Dr. Engel, Dr. Murray, as well as Dr. Capitamayo. What do you see as some of the challenges or drains on employee morale, and what can the campuses do to improve employee morale? So again, if you could speak to the challenges and drains, and also share some of the solutions to those challenges and drains.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. I can start here, and I think really the biggest challenge is the elephant in the room, which is where we are societally. We're coming out of the pandemic. We're transitioning from a pandemic into something that we thought would be gone, but is not gone. The pandemic has created all sorts of remaining challenges. One of the things that has happened is short staffing. Even when we have positions, we can't fill those positions. And so people are being asked to do the same amount of work or more with less staffing. And that obviously is quite challenging. Education and healthcare had always previously been very highly respected professions, and there has been an erosion of trust in those professions. And that makes it quite challenging to continue to wholeheartedly do work that was previously appreciated and meaningful. I think that these have really created a lot of trauma in our employees and our faculty and our trainees that is unresolved trauma, and that's something that's going to need to be addressed. And I think the last part of the pandemic is that work changed dramatically during the pandemic, and we are perhaps missing some opportunities to hit reset and learn from what transpired and create new normals as opposed to trying to go back to work as usual. So I think that the pandemic has really been the biggest impact on employee morale recently. What can be done about it, I think, is truly paying attention to it like we're doing today. One example I'd like to highlight is at the School of Medicine's Department of Internal Medicine, the department chair convened a small work group to measure well-being in the department. And that work group has every quarter been measuring burnout and well-being and drilling down that data to try to identify what the pain points are, implement an initiative, something to try to address that, then remeasure. And there's all sorts of measurements out there related to well-being, burnout, flourishing, thriving that different units can potentially use. And I think the fact that it's being measured and actively responded to is one critical piece. And then finally, one other example is the School of Medicine has a small grants program that's run out of the Center for Human and Organizational Potential, where individuals can submit proposals for small amount of funding up to $1,000 that really is looking at well-being. And this is a way to partner with and empower people within the SIU community to be a part of the solution. And that has been very well received, especially from our students and from really frontline staff who otherwise don't have access to resources. So a couple of potential solutions.
Thank you. Dr. Murray.
Yes, thank you. I really did focus on what can we do with a morale that is less than optimal. You know, I got here in July, and as I've been learning, kind of listening and learning about the College of Liberal Arts and the faculty and students and staff that are in it, you can really just tell that there's been, you know, almost like a PTSD of very low morale. And it has to do with the history of SIU and the way in which the pandemic then rolled into that, and then declining enrollments that are since kind of reversed. But all of this has affected people. And you know, I came in thinking, oh, you know, we're going to just need to have all this great programming and all this great ideas about how to, you know, build up morale. And there are things, but what I first realized is one of the best ways you can immediately improve morale is be competent. It's actually, if someone needs a vacation form filled out and signed, get that thing filled out and signed and do it very quickly and do it efficiently. Look at your systems and see where the systems might be broken and not be serving the people they're trying to serve. Find out from your employees and staff and faculty what is working in their daily interactions, their daily grind. What is taking 5 hours that could just take 20 minutes? I mean, those kinds of things, those kinds of efficiencies, that can really build a sense of positivity and morale. And I've been looking for those things and trying to work with others to figure out ways in which we can improve them. So that competency piece, I think, is just really important. And then with that is compassion, of course. And studies have shown that compassion can be taught. And one of the best ways you can teach compassion is simply to model it. Being compassionate yourself, working with your colleagues, but also working with your employees, those who are reporting to you. I like the description of compassion as having a soft front, but a strong back. And what that means is you're a human, you're interacting with other humans, you react like a human, but you have the strong back, meaning you can help with the hard times, help with the difficulties, help with the not so great news. And so it actually be resilient. And they've even shown in some of these studies that the more you learn about and practice compassion, the more resilient you also are. And of course, that resilience just feeds back into the compassionate mindset. So I think both of those things are very much related. And then I'm always looking at systems of transparency, collaboration, and accountability. I mean, those three things working together in tandem have just a natural way to build morale. If people know what's going on, if people understand that they can have a voice and they can say something that they need to say in order to improve a process or even be heard. And then if people know that others will be held accountable to the same rules they're being held accountable to, all of those things, they're like a self-feeding feedback loop that I think ultimately can build morale. And you haven't said a thing about salary. You haven't said a thing about number of vacation days or our benefits package. This is just the environment that we are swimming in. And how do you make that environment, that water, as important, but also as comfortable as possible in the day-to-day interactions people have.
Thank you, Dr. Murray. Dr. Capatamayo, if you can respond to the same question, challenges and drains on employee morale and solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. Hi, everybody. I focused on morale and identified three things that in my interaction with several people actually affect the morale. Number one is their perception of the health of the institution. And then number two is the communication that they get both internally and externally. And then the third is the perception of effective management. So basically what this drills down to is we all know kind of where SIU system is in terms of resources, all kinds of resources, and the different constituencies like SIUC, SIUE. We've been told the numbers. But how those numbers are communicated sometimes feels very negative, as if things are going to be very dire very soon, and there might be some collapse in certain places. So that does affect morale. And then the communication, how rapid it is when something happens, or how frequent it is in terms of repetition, and giving status updates, that does affect morale. Lastly, the management. So we've heard here from Dean Murray about certain strategies that he uses, and I feel those are actually accurate, but one of them that stands out is basically making sure that things are working. So giving an example of like a broken pipe somewhere, if it's fixed immediately, people feel that, systems are working. And you can escalate that to any sort of equipment or facilities. When you start seeing cracks that are not being fixed, then morale goes down. So fixing that, in my view, is basically just paying attention to what's going on, and recognizing that people live in an ecosystem where they're listening to a lot of news and they're reading a lot of data with peer institutions, with their family groups and so forth, and then they bring that to compare with what we're doing over here. So if we can create a path to something like, okay, your peer institution got this, and then you didn't get it because of this and this and that. So making those reasons understandable and effectively communicated actually does help.
Thank you. I think it's important to recap because you all have dropped a lot of gems on us, and I appreciate that, starting with Dr. Ingo. Just really, I noticed how everybody was able to specifically name what's going on, especially post-pandemic. So acknowledging erosion of trust, trauma, that is a word that we're hearing more often that we did not hear prior to the pandemic, how we're all experiencing trauma post-COVID. Dr. Murray spoke about PTSD. Dr. Capitamayo just talked about communication and being transparent and paying attention and how important that is. And then the solutions, again, was the same thing: compassionate, being efficient, just doing your job well, doing it in a timely fashion. Again, using processes to measure, we heard that. And I really must say that the soft front and the strong back, that will stay with me. So I really appreciate that visual because, again, that's what it's going to take for us to move forward. So I appreciate, again, those specific nuggets as we talk about some of the challenges. But I think I bring that up because, people don't always feel seen. And so when you name the specific things that are going on, it's like we see what's happening to us, to our employees, to our communities around us, and we're not ignoring that. And we are developing solutions to address that. And so I think that was just an excellent example of focusing on that. Now, our next question is specific, maybe to more marginalized populations as we talk about employee morale. So women and faculty staff from minoritized groups shoulder the added labor of mentoring students from minoritized groups reach out to them. They are also called upon consistently to serve as anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion representatives on committees and projects. And so the question is, how can we better appreciate faculty and staff members who shoulder the added labor, and they feel compelled to shoulder this added labor because they want diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism to be successful at our campuses, because we have committed at the system level, at the School of Medicine, across all of our campuses, to being leaders in the ADEI space. So if we can have Dr. Capitamayo and Dr. Ingo speak to invisible labor and added labor that women feel as they do this work on our campuses.
Thank you, Dr. Caldwell. So obviously, our mission statements at the institutional level are very strong on ADEI. In my view, I think we should also measure ADEI in terms of number one, attraction, number two, recruitment, and then number three, retention. So with attraction, I'm talking about client or customer facing activities that we do to make people feel that they're actually welcome here. And then recruitment basically means, going after the people that we want to attract into institutions. And then retention, making sure the policies actually align with the mission so that people can feel the, the pride in the institution to stay here. So some of these activities basically come down to the climate and then maybe how they feel, sense of safety, and sense of accomplishment. So basically, we should do this by, number one, acknowledging people's contributions. So invisible labor comes in many ways. I'll give an example of mentoring students. So SIUE has, lots of mentoring programs. For example, in my department, we have mentoring programs, and then athletics has mentoring programs. So some faculty, like myself, for example, go and mentor these students, specifically minority students. But then that usually doesn't translate in in the operating papers. It's not really recognized. So changing operating papers to recognize this type of contributions. And then also you saw in the survey, one of the responses was providing professional development opportunities. This is actually important because one, it adds to the skills level that people have, but it also tells them that, we want you to actually to grow in your role. An inclusive environment can never be overstated. And talking about different types of demographics, you have adults and you have students. Students usually are affected by things like, say, a police response to something. That can be very traumatizing to them. And that can be also an opportunity for us, the adults, to interact with them in a positive manner. So creating that inclusive environment is important. And then just offering fair compensation. So in the question there, they talks about women and the type of work they do for these institutions sitting on these committees. I think I also have seen in my experience here, 16 years, that that is actually the truth. There's so many committees that are just overpopulated by people that actually have the desire for things to work, and they're usually women on these committees. So fair compensation should be something that should be addressed. And then the third one is addressing bias and discrimination. So there's a whole bunch of bias and discrimination that goes on, microaggressions that go on, and how people react to that actually does affect, their work. And if that is not recognized, you think somebody's just being uncooperative, or they don't want to show up, or things, they feel disinterested, but there could be something that's in the background that's causing all that to happen. So being able to recognize these things quickly and address them, I think would help us.
Thank you. Dr. Ingle.
So I think one of the important things to do is to recognize that this work is often quite difficult with a huge sort of allostatic load attached to it. And that sometimes causes people to lose sight of the meaning of the work. And so I think there are opportunities to organizationally create some communities of caring and communities of learning where people who do this work have the opportunity to interact with each other and reconnect to the meaning in the work, and to really unburden the challenging aspects of that. So I think that that's one opportunity that we have, is to really intentionally create communities of caring. I think that a second thing that we can do is to really put some intentionality and structure around the committee appointments process that includes measurement and really looking at who is serving on these committees, and making sure that we have the right people on the committees, people that really celebrate and capitalize on the diversity that we have within our organization. And then thirdly, I think there are opportunities to better integrate this into our promotion and advancement processes. So again, this work can be quite meaningful. And that's great. And it's really good that everyone has the opportunity to participate in it. To date, it hasn't really been that well recognized as far as advancement and promotion. And the School of Medicine has intentionally added it into for clinician educators and physician scientists into the promotion criteria so that it is valued. And so I think the system could take a look at all of the different schools' promotion and advancement criteria to make sure that this is actually as valuable as I know everyone thinks that it is. It just needs to take that one step further with formal recognition of it.
Thank you. And I actually just want to reinforce both of those points. You all had that in common, Dr. Capitamayo and Dr. Engel, just how we could basically standardize. We know that this invisible labor has been going on, I mean, I would say since the academy has happened and took place to an extent. And so one of the deliverables from the Diversity Advisory Council system-wide is to put forth recommendations to make these action steps concrete. So we are specifically looking at how can we include the work of women, marginalized groups across the campus, and that people are giving credit for the hard work and the labor that they do when we talk about mentoring students and additional committees. We know that for decades now, you know, women students have dominated, for example, the undergraduate experience. And so again, people are likely to gravitate towards individuals who look like them or who they feel like can mentor them. And so we know that, you know, as those students continue to fill up our institutions, that we need to make sure that we continue to provide those mentoring experiences, but we do not want the faculty and the staff members who are doing that to be burdened. And so I also think, again, how can we have structures, again, as Dr. Engel mentioned, for the committee selection process to make sure that different groups are not being burdened. But I just want to make sure that we know that we are putting forth recommendations in the tenure and promotion process to acknowledge the invisible labor that has been done for years from women, as well as people from racialized and ethnic groups. So again, thank you for that recommendation. The next question, we just talked about women and minoritized groups. Another marginalized group that we're going to focus on now is how can we foster a culture that helps LGBTQIA employees feel welcome and appreciated on our campuses. And just a couple of things I want to do is I just want to recognize and highlight Dr. Angela Town, who is the coordinator for the LGBTQ Resource Center on our Carbondale campus. And we know that we have leadership with our Queer Faculty Staff Association on our SIUE campus. And so some of the work that they do is that they are definitely evidence-based. And so again, one of the things that came across in our welcoming and belonging conversation of understanding just last month is just showing how you can decrease suicide ideation by 56% just by using proper pronouns, right? And that's not only for students, that's also for faculty as well as staff members. So again, dignifying people and acknowledging them based on how they want to be acknowledged. That is one of the ways that we can create a culture that helps LGBTQIA employees feel more welcome. One of the things that is constantly done across our campuses is safe space training. And that is not only for students or certain select faculty and staff members, that is something that all of us should engage in. It really does educate us. And again, we don't want to go to those communities who are marginalized and who have suffered and ask them to be the ones who always educate us. These things are being offered on our campus freely. And again, it's up to us to take advantage of that. One of the benefits after you complete the safe space training is that you'll receive a sticker, and then you can actually post that publicly. And that lets employees, faculty, and staff, as well as students know who identify as LGBTQIA that you have some prior knowledge. And again, we use the word trauma, that they don't have to traumatize themselves and explain everything, that we have some basic knowledge that we again need to build on, but they can come to us and there will be a safe space. So that's another thing that I would encourage you to do. And I would welcome others to respond to this question. What are some of the things we could do to foster a more inclusive culture for our LGBTQIA employees?
Dr. Caldwell, I can jump in just very quickly and briefly about the what's something that's happened at the School of Medicine. We know that a lot of the issues are related to not feeling like you belong. And one of the things that our students often are our greatest leaders, we learn so much from them. Our students from our LGBTQ group, from our students of color group, from our women in medicine group, they have all come together and formed a larger group that's called the Marginalized Student Network. And together they increase their sense of belonging. They also increase the power that their communities have on changing things at the School of Medicine. And so I think that that is a model that could be replicated elsewhere.
Great. I like that, joining forces to strengthen the work that they're doing. That's an excellent example. Would anyone else like to comment about specific things being done on the campus to help foster inclusion for LGBTQIA employees? So I just want to reinforce that we have dedicated efforts on both of our campuses. I would highly encourage you to not just know that they are in existence, but to also reach out and to see what we can do to further support those efforts. Our next question, number 6, and this question will be directed towards Dr. Engel. How can we basically include all employees in showing appreciation? So the comment, appreciation does not only come from supervisors, but it also comes from coworkers and customers, and in our case, students. What can be done to improve appreciation from these audiences? Again, coworkers, students, in addition to our supervisors. So Dr. Capitamayo, as well as Dr. Engel, if you could respond to those questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Caldwell. So from the students' perspective, I think we should allow them an opportunity to comment or give feedback on our work. In my experience, where we've had assessment letters for seniors that are graduating, you read about the most impactful time they had with a professor or an instructor or member of staff. And basically what they're doing is saying thank you. So they pinpoint to somebody that helped them finish a project. And I think when we get that type of feedback, it's very helpful also for us to feel valued, because it's very specific. And it actually brings that memory when you actually help that student complete their project. Between ourselves as staff and employees at any level, in my experience, I feel having a flat hierarchy does help, because that makes it easy for me, for example, as chair of a department, to say thank you to somebody and also to recognize them for having achieved something. People have a lot of initiative that they bring to this work, because it's not very structured, from day to day. So you get an idea coming out of somebody that it's not really their job to do. And we must amplify those initiatives and those efforts. And also just offering assistance does help people feel valued. When they're struggling with a task or a project, and then you offer in whatever way to help, I think that makes them feel they can achieve a bit more, because one hand can achieve something, 2 hands can achieve even more or better. And then provide constant feedback. Instead of just ignoring something, even if it was a good thing, but not commenting about it, doesn't show that your coworker is having an impact in your organization. So you have to give feedback, constructive feedback, so that they can either repeat that or they can show other people how to do that task as well. And then we should also, I think, celebrate milestones. In my experience, just saying happy birthday to somebody, because I know when the birthday was, does help. And then allowing people to take initiative. I have several examples, but I'll give one example of one of my workmates who has a different role in our department, but she is very involved in finding internships for students. And this has just exploded, that opportunity for our students in the St. Louis area because she's very connected there. And constantly saying thank you to her, I think, helps her to, keep going. But it also helps my students a lot more because now they're very connected, they're very confident to go out there, they write good resumes. And this is something that just came out of her initiative. So saying thank you to people like that. But I'll just end with one comment. One of my friends, Kyle Moore, who's the development officer in our department, in our college, he said writing a card goes a long way in creating a relationship. So if somebody did something good, they donated $50 to the department or to the college, and you take time to write 2 sentences with your bad handwriting and send that card in the mail and they get it, it boosts their confidence that you're actually communicating, that you're creating a relationship with them. So just these few things, I think, do help from a student perspective and then employee to employee and with our outside clientele as well.
Thank you for that. I just want to actually give a shout out based on your comment. It triggered a thought, activated a thought that today is SIU Carbondale Giving Day. So that's one of the ways we can show appreciation for team members on that campus is to make sure that we donate. Oftentimes that funding is going towards really helping our students and employees be successful and effectively get through the pipeline. So I plan to donate today, and I just wanted to give that shout out and encourage others to do so as well. And then 2 things you said, you made 2 distinctions. You could say happy birthday. It goes back earlier to Don DeFreitas, just that person who was born. You can appreciate them. And then at the same time, you can just recognize who they are by, saying thank you to a colleague who's expanded those internship opportunities for students. So you gave those 2 excellent examples that we can all, again, imitate starting today. Dr. Ingo, again, how can we engage appreciation from other audiences in addition to supervisors?
So I'll build on what Dr. Capitamayo had to say. And number one, as a organization, we can make it simple. So thank you cards. The School of Medicine has a couple of programs. One is called Purple Praise Cards, and they sit out on countertops and people can fill them out. So we make it easily accessible for people so you don't have to remember when you get home, oh, who was I going to send that card to? You can do it right there. We have electronic and on our internet ways to send e-cards as well. So that's something that the organization can do to facilitate it for individuals. I think the second thing is to also make it visible and meaningful. Something that the School of Medicine has done is we've had 2 different campaigns over the past year and a half. One was called Unsung Heroes, and the other was Role Models of Wellness. And individuals had the opportunity to nominate someone as an unsung hero or a role model of wellness. Those individuals were interviewed and they're highlighted in newsletters and celebrated. So again, putting some structure around things that allow individuals to recognize others.
Thank you. And I'm pleased to see, maybe you could share that with others, that you all already have a built-in system with the Purple Praise cards. Yeah, I see Ms. Colombo shaking her head like we would like to see that, so we could just make it more organic to encourage employees across the system. And so now we have a time for maybe 2 more questions. I would encourage those of you who are in the audience who are participating and who may have questions, please make sure you put those in the chat and we will get to those within the next 7 minutes. So our next question again goes to Ms. Pat Merritt as well as Mr. Chambers. What are administrators doing on your campus to recognize when and how employee appreciation can be demonstrated? So what are some of the training and professional development efforts that are going into administrators making sure that they promote employee appreciation across your campuses? And we'll start with Ms. Merritt.
Okay, I'm not specifically aware of any training, but I would like to encourage administrators and managers on a couple of things. One, to provide vision and leadership. No one wants to follow a non-existent or ill-defined roadmap to success. If there is no clear communicated goal or plan, employees will operate in silos and could become discouraged and possibly dysfunctional. Next, work to produce timely results for employees. Employees are constantly working on deadlines to the degree that their production requirements dictate. When the shoe is on the other foot and the employee is looking for answers, explanations for their needs, the office or the department needs or other changes, operating within a reasonable timeline is most appreciated, and communicating with the employees is absolutely needed. Next, lead by example. The old cliche, do as I say and not as I do, is not appreciated or respected by employees. And finally, a person of character. Be a person of character. Employees work best under a person of good character. It garners respect and encourages the employee to do their best. A good leader will not be an internal barrier to progress. A good leader will be accountable and build trust among their team. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Merritt. Vision, leadership, good character. Thank you for those basic reminders, but necessary for us to do good work. And now, Mr. Chambers, if you could share.
Sure. You know, in thinking about this question, I've been here for a couple months, 3 months. But one of the things that I've noticed is that, you know, it's important that we prepare our administrators, because it's one thing to put a person in a position, it's another thing for them to be prepared for that role. And so that's one of the things that I'm working on with our annual evaluations, is that, you know, revamping that annual evaluation and making sure that it's aligned with the strategic plan for the university. You know, when I look at our core values, citizenship, excellence, inclusion, integrity, and wisdom, making sure that we prepare our administrators, we prepare our managers, prepare everyone that these are the things that we should be centered on. And if we're not talking to that or towards that each and every day, and it's just a slogan on the wall, then that's what it becomes. So it's important that we have those conversations. It's important that we model. One of the things, it's important that we meet regularly and have communications. It's important that we give kudos to team members. And it's important that we have the expectation that is going to be carried out throughout their teams as well. I think another way that we can emphasize employer appreciation is also through new employee orientation at the outset. If we model it at the outset, that's the expectation, we set the bar. And so, you know, those are the things that right now that we are in the process of developing. I'll say it that way. In the 3 months that I've been here, I meet with my team every week. I give out kudos every week. And I personalize it because it's what's worked for me throughout my career. I mean, obviously I have a few gray hairs, so I didn't just
Mr. Chambers, I'm not sure if you could hear me, but you froze for a moment. And so I think he has given us excellent advice, and just even speaking to how they are revamping their annual evaluation on the SIU campus with giving praise and kudos in mind. And again, how that has shaped him and helped him move forward in his trajectory. I don't know what the latest data is, the psychologists are still saying this, but I think another thing that's worth mentioning as I was listening to the conversation, even when we think about evaluations, oftentimes we're telling people how to improve. And when you think about employee appreciation, I've heard in the past that for every one criticism, you need about 9 pieces of praise, right? So we have to think about that when we're sharing negative comments, like what can we do to compensate for that? And again, it has to be genuine and meaningful. We've heard that too. And that, again, leadership's to model that. But I think oftentimes we could be heavy on the criticisms and not more heavily focused on things that are being done well. But the way humans function is that they need to hear those positive affirmations in order to continue to flourish and thrive. So I just wanted to share that as food for thought. And this is our very last question before we get to the panelists and our audience members to see what their thoughts are. But this is a worthwhile question that I think we should end on. And I would like to just actually open this up to about 4 of the panel members. If you were tasked with designing an employee appreciation program, what would it look like? How would you measure it? Those are some of the things that we should think about. So again, I'm going to start with Ms. Dawn DeFreitas. If you could talk about what an ideal employee appreciation program would look like at SIU.
Sure. If I were creating an ideal employee appreciation program, I would start with creating a culture and not just an event. I think events don't build appreciation and recognition into a culture. So, and to create a culture of engagement, loyalty, high performance, and retention, employee appreciation and employee recognition efforts have to be intentional, thoughtful, and fair. Favoritism over fairness will absolutely kill morale. It undermines appreciation and recognition efforts, no matter how strong and focused they are. My ideal employee appreciation program would provide variety. Cookie cutter doesn't work. It would provide flexibility because one size doesn't fit all. Feedback and input would be solicited from all levels of the organization. And from those who usually aren't picked for kickball. It would also include training. It would include constant monitoring, measuring, and then updating the program based on the effectiveness or feedback. So that's where I would go.
Thank you. Flexible, fair, feedback, training, monitoring, measuring, and updating. Excellent. That's an excellent program. Thank you for that design. Ms. Renee Colombo, what are your thoughts on that question?
Thank you. John spoke on some of the areas that I was thinking, but I thought first off would be survey the staff and the faculty to find out what those measures are, because there is not a one size fits all. So a campus-wide request of what would be that appreciation look like to individuals. Then based on that, you could develop a plan, but also I think you kind of decentralize it down to the units. Each department can look at it differently, depending on what type of staff members that you have. We're all comprised of different employment types of faculty, staff, student workers, graduate assistants. So I think that's important to be able to touch each area. Some are like to be recognized in the public atmosphere, but others, it could be recognizing their birthday or having a luncheon for once a month or things like that. So I think the key is to find out your focus group to do that and piggyback off ideas. Like Dr. Hingle said, there is other ideas from each of our campuses that we could actually utilize and work together on.
Thank you. A lot of customization to make sure we're getting it right. I appreciate those thoughts. And then Dr. Murray, if you can close us out with that question, if you had to design an employee appreciation program, what would that look like?
Right. Well, I have basically four things that I would mention there. These are cycles of mechanisms for visibility. Who can be seen more and the work be more acknowledged? When I got here, nobody knew who the custodial staff was because they worked at night. So I found out who they were and made them visible and then rewarded them with a kind of, we had some kind of way, Christmas time to give them, gift certificates, things like that. So find out what ways you can be more, you can help with visibility. The second one is opportunity, mechanisms for opportunity. What are some things you can either create or is already in existence that can provide opportunity for folks to be their best selves? And third is transparency. How transparent are you, but also how transparent are others being right now? Are minutes available? Can people find out what happened in that meeting? What kinds of ways in which transparency could be increased so that those who want it can seek it out and find it, and those who don't want it aren't burdened by it? And then finally, reward. What kinds of reward mechanisms do you have? Not just awards, but also incentives. How might you think about innovation? How might you think about helping people be creative? Removing roadblocks, which has already been mentioned on this group already. So things like that. So those four areas: visibility, opportunity, transparency, and reward.
Thank you. Appreciate you repeating that. Those are also excellent. So we've gotten a lot of really practical advice and steps for all layers of stakeholders to engage in, from students, faculty, staff. So I really want to appreciate our panelists for giving those expert advice as well as words of wisdom. And now we're going to transition to questions from our audience members. The first question and comment that we would like to be addressed from one of our audience members is: staff evaluations need to be merit-based. All staff receive the same percentage of compensation when it is offered. It does not matter if you are the best employee or the worst employee. Each receive the same level of compensation. One employee may come to work every day on time and work hard the entire shift and more, rarely call in, and is also a team player, but will receive the same compensation as an employee who is late, calls in, and is not a team player. This should be taken into consideration. So Dr. Chambers, Mr. Chambers, if you could speak to that as far as staff evaluations, merit-based, and how we could make those distinctions, and if we should make those distinctions when it comes to compensation.
Sure, Dr. Caldwell. I'll be happy to respond to that. From an HR lens, in thinking about this question, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the parameters that we operate within on behalf of the university and on behalf of employees and staff and faculty. And so in looking and reviewing this question, I think about the fact that, those parameters do not allow us to necessarily be able to have that autonomy to be able to provide a merit-based compensation. And so, again, we have CBAs, we have collective bargaining agreements that we have to honor. And so with that, there are some restrictions, and I would hope that those things are taken into consideration. It's a dialogue that, if you are a member of a CBA, that you have the opportunity, you're afforded the avenue to have those conversations with your representation, and then obviously they can come forward and voice those concerns on behalf of, that collective bargaining association. And so, but those are the parameters. And so, in the perfect world, we would not have necessarily those restrictions, but this is where we are right now, as a system and as a university.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those parameters and also the process for employees who would like to engage into that dialogue more. So that's helpful. Thank you. Our next question from our audience members, and again, it goes back to compensation. The recent compensation and bonuses offered have been very welcome, but there needs to be compensation for an employee time and service, and not only in the position that they are in. Employees who have been with SIU for many years should receive longevity compensations for their continued service. So this person is obviously arguing not just the work that they're doing, but the collective body of work and service that they have contributed. And so maybe when they serve 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, that's acknowledged and it's also compensated. So I would welcome panelists to share their insights on that perspective. Dr. Mahoney.
If you wanted me to comment on that.
Yes.
I mean, some of it goes back to what Carl just talked about too, is some of this is tied to what agreements we have with various unions and collective bargaining agreements, and how we do compensation is something usually decided to some degree at the negotiating table. I will say we have at times, I know Carbondale, for example, recently did a look at salaries and looked at where there was salary compression and did some adjustments based on that. So it's not impossible to ever do, I should point that out. But again, anything we do there then takes resources away from doing other things that we might want to do salary wise. And so we always have to decide what's the best use of those salary dollars that we have available. We have done some of that in recent years, and I think they're doing some additional with different employee groups in Carbondale as well.
Thank you for that feedback. I see, please keep more questions coming if you would like to even expand or, clarify some of the comments that were made, or if you actually have recommendations from your perspective of what we can do to improve employee morale. So this is another comment. Compensation should not be based on merit for simply doing your job. Those who are not doing their job to satisfaction should be evaluated accordingly. And so I also am gleaning from that comment that maybe some people don't deserve merit increases or raises if they're not doing their job, and that they should be evaluated and that should be documented appropriately. So I don't know. I think that's enough said, and I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, that people who are not doing their job should not necessarily be compensated. The money, maybe those monies could be redirected to individuals who are going above and beyond. So I thank you. Okay.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah.
You know, I think that it's important to try to understand why someone might not be doing their job. They might feel disenfranchised. They might not feel a sense of belonging. And so organizationally, we can look at ways to get at that through stay interviews and other things like that, which hopefully will get people up to at least adequate levels of performance before assuming that we want to get rid of them or whatever might sort of be intended in this comment. So I want us to have a compassionate lens of understanding.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit if that's okay. Just, I think one of the things too, I actually was in a system that did this at one point where we did not give raises to those who are not performing at a satisfactory level. I guess the thing that was positive out of that is it's very, very, very few. Most people are actually doing a good job and some are doing an outstanding job. The number who really were unsatisfactory was so small, it didn't enhance the salary pool in any significant way at all. So it didn't have, I think, quite the impact that people think it would. Not to say that, again, it's not something we should do, but again, it's very few people when you get down to it.
Excellent comments. And I also want to go back to what Dr. Ingle said. We know from the research that when people feel like they have to assimilate or conform into environments, when they feel isolated, other people's perspective is that they're not doing their jobs. And so I do think it's important to have the conversations throughout the year. As somebody who is a leader, who's been a supervisor, I would believe that if you have those lines of communication open, no one should show up at their annual performance evaluation and not know exactly what the expectation is. And if that's the case, I would say as a leader, as a supervisor, you have not done your due diligence if people do not know where they stand prior to those annual performance evaluations. It should be conversations. It should be engagement. It should be talks about how to improve and also to make sure that those expectations are clear for employees. So I think that's another thing too. If people consistently not do their job, that's a different conversation, but it shouldn't be an aha or surprise moment once a year. We should be having that dialogue throughout the year with different people that we collaborate with and that we serve with.
Dr. Caldwell,
yeah, Ms. Merrick.
I'd like to also just chime in as it relates to investment for employees, because some employees can be invested in while others are not. And so I just like to say that when we are being appreciative of our staff, we should look to find ways to invest in all of our employees, making sure the people that needs and wants to go to conferences are able to do that we encourage talent and creativity among our employees, that we help stretch and grow employees, and that we have mentoring when available for everyone, not just to select. So investment is key to employees, and some people are invested in and some others are not.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Merritt. Equity and investment is what I heard with all your employees. So thank you for sharing that. Another comment from a participant: I am sure that unions will be open to a monetary award that accompanies a service award certificate. So that is a recommendation that they would like us to consider. Evaluations are not meaningful. Sometimes they feel like that the monetary award and the service awards might be helpful, that the evaluations have not been helpful. But again, our goal is for those evaluations to be helpful so people can know how to truly improve and advance across our SIU campuses. So they should not mean nothing, and they should be meaningful, and that's the point. So I do want to add that comment in as well. And I think with that, maybe to go to this point, another comment is that we really need required training. And I believe maybe when it comes to evaluations, and then also with respect to what does it look like to really demonstrate value and appreciation as we have these conversations, it's not always organic. So there's acknowledgement that we probably need more formal training across the campus so we could know how to show value and appreciation towards one another. So that was another recommendation from the group. Reserve parking for faculty and staff would be nice. Is that possible? And I'll ask that question, is that possible? Because that's a question posed by one of the audience members, and they see that as a sign of appreciation. And that's something that may not be monetary, but that would also help employees feel valued. So do we have any comments on that?
From the Carbondale campus, that University Excellence Award, that is a part of it. They actually get a special parking spot when awarded that.
Excellent. Happy to hear that's happening. I would also like to say that that's something that's being considered as we look at our ADEI System Lifetime Achievement Award. That was the recommendation that we're considering is a preferred parking spot for the individuals who are awarded that achievement. So thank you for that. Any other comments before we move on? Okay. And then this is another comment, feeling seen, SIU East presence in East St. Louis. And this is a observation. There is a billboard that advertises SIU Carbondale on the highway en route to the higher education campus near SIUE. I want to be clear about that, but no SIUE signage. So someone is saying, how could SIUE be made more visible in the SIUE community? And they see SIUC is not that they should be excluded, but that they would like to see SIUE added and more visible. So again, I wanted to just share that comment because again, it seems that that would show appreciation for that community as well as service. So that's another recommendation that we see from audience members. So I believe that we have covered those particular comments and addressed questions. Again, I would like to thank all of our panelists. I'm actually going to clap. I learned a great deal from you guys, and I really appreciate it. I know you all are very busy, and so I'm very grateful for all of the feedback that you have given today. And I would ask for all of you who are listening today to join us April 18th for our last session, session 6, and we would specifically speak to the bias incident reporting process. That was another finding that employees may sometimes fear retaliation or also fear that nothing will be done if they file a bias incident report. And one of the reasons why we want to discuss that is because that is nothing further from the truth. We want to make sure that if anybody is experiencing, we heard microaggressions or racism or discrimination or any type of harm, that you know that there is a reporting structure to address and remedy your particular concerns. And so that is something that we would like to invite you to. So please join us for that on April 18th, 12 o'clock to 1:30. So thank you, and we're going to now adjourn this call. Thank you, Mr. Carol Walker, for posting this. Again, you can join in and review this on our SIU System web channel. So have a great day, and again, we appreciate you joining us.